What does it take to cut a ship into two halves? To strip down and reassemble a giant plane? To overhaul the world's longest high-speed train? It takes hundreds of professionals, expertise, precision, and courage.
It's never been done before.
Pushing everyone to the limit.
It is surely a challenging job.
Now on Mega Pit Stops. It is one of the most state-of-the-art fighter jets in the world, the Saab JAS-39, known as the Gripen, or in English, Gripen. So what is the Swedish-built jet used for? Pursuit, attack, and reconnaissance. The 35 million euro fighter jet can fly at double the speed of sound and is renowned for its high level of reliability and versatility. It can master both the extreme cold and difficult runways. To avoid deadly accidents, every jet has to pass a mega pit stop after 200 flying hours. The machinists put the Gripen to the acid test. They check the hydraulic system, all moving parts, and the oil, the aircraft's blood. The ejection seat, the pilot's life insurance. The access panel, the skin. The biggest part is the engine check. The turbine is the heart of the Gripen. They also overhaul the weapon system, the fist. All of this in only 8 weeks. The Czech Republic, the 21st Tactical Air Force Base in Caslav, 100 kilometers east of Prague. Home to 14 Gripens. 2 of them are on call 24/7, ready to defend NATO's airspace. The fighter jet with serial number 39.238 already has 1,800 flying hours under its belt. Time for a major mega pit stop. Head mechanic Martin Batra will be inspecting every inch of the plane with a fine-tooth comb. Any fault could put airspace safety at risk.
I have been interested in planes ever since I was little. For me, the most fascinating thing is that such heavy machines are able to lift up into the air and fly. And I am in awe of the fact that you can master these planes up there whenever you want. Sadly, I wasn't able to become a pilot myself, as my hearing and sight weren't good enough. That's why I became a mechanic. It's a great job. Nowadays, every aircraft is different. Planes start to age and often reveal problems that we knew nothing about. For us, that's the biggest challenge during this pit stop.
Martin's team has to be finished in 40 working days. As well as complete precision, this also means a whole lot of time pressure. His crew starts right away. The worker's first job is to take a sample of the hydraulic oil. Admittedly, it is a pretty small task, but sending it off for analysis in Sweden, a few hundred kilometers north of here, can take several weeks. And changing 20 liters of fighter jet oil requires a lot of time and effort, too.
We will start the engine for 30 minutes so that we get all particles to move. We will first take the hydraulic samples, then we'll do the IP gravity spreadsheet. And after the shutdown, we will take the engine samples.
Aircraft mechanic Roman Brazda starts up the plane and moves all of its wings to make sure the oil is distributed as evenly as possible throughout the plane. Then, Martin siphons off the oil. Now, all that's left is to hope that the result is positive, so they don't have to replace the oil. After all, this mission has more important priorities.
We have 14 aircraft stationed here. Altogether, they have to fly 2,000 hours in 1 year. A huge challenge we face is keeping the window for maintenance work as small as possible so that the planes can complete their flying hours. That's why we work around the clock.
Incidentally, the teams give every fighter jet a nickname, depending on its weakness. The Beast is undergoing a mega pit stop today. Its name comes from the fact that its combustion system keeps developing a life of its own. First things first, it's time to give the Beast a good wash.
We're preparing the plane for cleaning. Because we use a high-pressure cleaner, there are places where water could get into the plane. That's why we have to tape up any points that aren't completely leak-proof, including the cabin. Rust is the worst thing that can happen to a plane.
Cleaning is about more than just making sure the plane looks nice. It is the only way the team is able to locate any damage to the fighter jet's outer shell.
Here is something small. Chipping paint is a reoccurring problem. After all, the planes are a good 14 or 15 years old. As long as we can see the silver layer, then everything is still okay. This protects the pilots from lightning. If the silver layer disappears, there will be problems during a storm. The systems could shut down if a bolt hits the plane.
The access panel is a kind of harness to the aircraft. Under the special varnish, there is a rust and lightning protection. The mechanics inspect the access panel precisely. Every single scratch has to be repaired. If they find larger damages, they even replace parts.
Yes, that'll be fine.
I'll pass the washer jet up to you.
First, the Czech Army uses a special mixture to remove any larger bits of filth. Then, all the team has to do is spray down the film of dirt.
We're not quite done yet. There's still work left to do.
It's almost like a car wash, just a little more hardcore than removing a few flies from the windshield.
Most of the dirt is fuel, insects, engine oil, hydraulic oil, and fine particles. Because the jet is up in the air, it also gets covered in lots of dust particles, sand from the Sahara, and animals. That's why we use stronger chemicals than in a car wash. The jet's paintwork is a lot tougher than the paint used on cars.
Day 2. Now the team turns their attention to the ejector seat, every pilot's life insurance policy.
Stop!
Including the parachute, rocket propeller, and emergency kit, the seat weighs 120 kilograms. Over the next 15 days, it will be completely dismantled, serviced, and put back together again. This also includes a functional check and test of the pyrotechnics. The man in charge of making sure everything works when the jet's back on duty, aircraft mechanic Peter Sikora.
Even the ejector seat has to be checked on a regular basis, because all materials age. We check all the seals regularly and replace anything that isn't up to standard. The same goes for the individual pyrotechnic cartridges. They age too, so of course they have to be replaced. Same for the belts, springs, and so on.
Peter isn't daunted by this responsibility. However, he doesn't quite take the same stance when it comes to the explosives themselves.
I don't feel under pressure. After all, there's plenty of equipment in the aircraft to make sure the pilot stays safe. It's more the explosives that worry me, because they are a risk to me.
But it is precisely this highly explosive substance that allows the seat to work in the first place. It triggers a range of emergency measures, from launching the seat to releasing the parachute. But one thing at a time. Before the mega pit stop mechanics can dismantle the seat, they have to remove the volatile explosives. There is even a special ejector seat workshop to assist. Here, the mechanics remove the 9 pyrotechnic cartridges in total. These cartridges hold a total of 3.5 kilos of explosives and accelerate the pilot to 17 times his own body weight in an emergency. So, beware. Day 4 in the mega pit stop. Now it's time to look at the fighter jet's power source. The mechanic starts screening the turbines, and that's no easy task. Including the afterburners. The engine can produce thrust of over 80 kilonewton. An Airbus A380, which weighs more than 80 times as much, achieves just 4 times this force. The turbine is the heart of the Gripen. Little scratches can have severe consequences. If the engine collapses, the aircraft is crashing down. In case there are damages invisible to the naked eye, the mechanics inspect everything precisely with the stethoscope. If they discover one mistake, the whole engine has to be replaced. The time has come for Roman Brazda. Wearing a special anti-static suit, he climbs inside the fighter jet's inner chamber.
This is a job that most people don't like doing because you have to climb all the way inside this very tight space. People with claustrophobia would never be able to do this job. But for me, it's the best experience there is because I get to go inside the heart of the plane, to a place where not many people get to go. It's a definite highlight and the best feeling there is.
Despite 15 years of experience in the field, even Roman has found himself trapped inside a fighter jet turbine, which resulted in a dramatic rescue. But not even that has put him off.
I will start from the interspace, from the sealing rubber that separates the engine from the Gripen's part. Then I will devote myself to the first pre-stator, the blades, and then the first stage of the fan, and the second stage, including the inlet.
Roman has to look out for every tiny dent, most of which are caused by stones or birds hitting the plane. If he misses just one single flaw, the entire engine could be destroyed during its next military deployment.
Everything looks fine. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. I'll carry on checking the turbine from the top now.
At the same time, head mechanic Martin and his team are removing the fighter jet's outer shell and looking for further damage.
Here I've spotted something. This dark patch is just anti-rust agent. There's still enough there, so it's fine. We only need to add a new layer when it gets too dry. The waterproofing here? No, it's fine.
This involves undoing thousands of screws, each of which has its own precise location. The solution is as smart as it is simple.
Every screw on the plane has its own position. Not always every bolt is the same, so to prevent the confusion of the bolts and possible damage to the aircraft, we have prepared such a check invention. It consists of these cartons. Each carton is marked with the number of holes and by the direction of the flight. The bolts go in exactly by this order. So now, I'll try to find the right kit.
There are cables or turbine components behind every drilled hole. This means that the engineers have to adjust the length of every screw accordingly. Just one mistake would almost inevitably destroy the electronics too. The level of damage caused could quickly reach the 6-figure range. Roman uses an endoscope to check the turbine's inner workings.
There are only a few people on the airfield able to perform this test, and that is precisely the problem. You need to have special training to do it, but you also need a certain flair and the right way of looking at things. We simply have to find everything. We're talking about very small parts here, which is why we need all the intuition and experience.
Roman has to take a break every 90 minutes to make sure he has enough concentration to hopefully uncover every problem, like now.
I can see some second-degree damage. It looks like a small dent from a stone. Later on, I'll compare the damage with the table to see how deep and wide it is. I'll take some photos now before I assess the damage. Only then can I see how bad it really is.
And whether damage like this will cause the plane to crash in the near future. The consequences sound pretty dramatic. A full engine replacement, performed lovingly by hand.
I am more an old-fashioned guy. It took a long time to get used to these computers. All my life, I have only been working with engines. So the Gripen is my life, all my life.
After the cold zone of the turbine, Roman now turns his attention to the combustion chamber. This is where the kerosene is ignited, generating the maximum thrust needed in equally heated situations during combat.
We're slowly working towards the most critical point. Now, I really have to concentrate to make sure I don't miss any faults. After all, we are in the combustion chamber here.
In here, damage smaller than a hairline crack can quickly destroy the entire engine. A fighter jet known as the Gripen, belonging to the Czech Army, is in for a mega pit stop. It's day 8 of 40. Roman is checking the final rotary blades in the turbine.
Uh-oh. I've spotted a problem here. I need to take a closer look from another angle. No, that doesn't look good. The turbine blade is really heavily damaged. We'll have to replace the engine.
Damage like this could quickly spell disaster during deployment. The risk of a crash is too high. The turbine needs to come out, which means a delay of at least 5 days. 2 days later, the fighter jet's weaponry system is now under the microscope. The Gripen is a multi-purpose warplane: hunt, attack, and search. Therefore, it is able to carry 8 variable weapons. Always with it, the machine gun. The Akon Mauser BK-27 can fire 1,700 rounds with a 27mm caliber per minute. Tomasz Smoler is the maintenance team's weapons expert. He knows that the Gripen is more or less perfect. But even a multi-flexible fighter jet can have its weaknesses.
The cannon is exceptionally important. Say, for example, if the pilot is not able to use rockets, then the cannon is the ideal solution. However, if I compare this one here to the one in the Tornado, I see that it may be the same weapon, but the Tornado is able to reload if it gets jammed. This plane doesn't have that option. If the shell is blocked, then we're really screwed. There's a nut here on the top. You have to loosen it and pull the crank.
Tomasz tests the Gripen's cannon again and again, after every deployment in fact. In times of peace, he still checks it at least once a year.
Oil the barrel outside and inside, then we'll carry on.
First things first, the barrel-based machine gun has to be dismantled into hundreds of separate pieces.
Utmost precision is extremely important in this job. If I put something back together wrong, forget a part, or fail to spot something, it could have fatal consequences for the fighter jet. Complete destruction or shots fired.
They follow a standard procedure. First up, washing. The soldiers carefully scrub every component. Even cleaning weapons is a dream job for Tomáš.
I collect weapons and guns as a hobby. I think it's good when a job is performed by someone who enjoys doing it, as it means they'll be precise. I put my heart into my work.
1 week later, the replacement engine has now arrived. 5 days behind schedule. But this step couldn't be avoided.
We could have had a case where there was not enough coolant to cool the engine. It could have set on fire. This almost certainly would have led to a catastrophe, and the plane could have crashed.
Luckily, it only takes an hour to change the turbine, according to the manufacturer. Roman sees that as a challenge.
How are things going with you? The line is jammed. You'll have to loosen it.
A critical moment. Roman releases the 1,050-kilogram damaged jet engine from the plane.
Okay, keep going. Yeah. That's great. It sits here at the back. Stop.
Whether it's during a mega pit stop or in the tough conditions of war, an efficient replacement process is crucial.
It is interesting that the whole engine actually hangs only on 3 points. A left and a right hinge, and the back hinge hang on such a bolt. Can we? So we go. Can I go on? Here we hang on something. Yeah, wait here. You must go to the middle, lift the pad on the bolt and forward. Good? So we can now. Watch out. Now lift it. We don't have any room for errors here. I need to be really careful now. Even the tiniest thing could have major consequences. A broken pipe, a damaged bracket, it could all be disastrous. Yes, keep going. Just like that.
Engine expert Roman is still making good time, and he seems pretty happy.
So it's in. We had a good day today. If the holes move, you can't fit the pins in. And then you have to fiddle around a lot. Half an hour down, half an hour back up. It took us an hour, as promised.
They have reached their first important milestone in week 4 of the mega pit stop. However, the team is still running behind. Then they get news from Sweden, the results of the hydraulic oil test.
Roman, particles are good. It came out as class 5, low viscosity, just around the section to replace the liquid.
The oil is the blood of the aircraft, responsible for all moving parts. Therefore, the quality of the hydraulic oil is extremely important. Within the next 2 days, the mechanics will check all flaps with which the pilot steers the Gripen. And they test if the landing gear opens in an emergency situation. If this doesn't happen within a time limit, they have to replace parts.
So even if we're taking it later or longer, it would not be different. Well, that means that we will print an API gravity report. We will look at it and send an API, and then, hopefully, we will finish.
Let's do it.
Yes, I take the pump, and I pump a bit there.
The verdict? They have to pump out 20 liters of old hydraulic oil and replace it with fresh oil. This will also take up time that they hadn't accounted for. It's a setback that the team has to shake off. After all, it's not just a personal objective they've set for themselves. It is about making sure NATO's pilots are back in the air again as quickly as possible.
It's slowly moving.
Because of the purity of the fluid, it is very important to use this fluid in a closed circuit. After each use, it is necessary to rinse the tube in order to pass it over the filter, which will clean it continuously and keep the fluid in good condition.
The team starts the test with fresh hydraulic oil. The plane isn't allowed to run here in the hangar, so a generator is used to produce the pressure needed by pumping additional oil into the lines.
Good? Yes, good. I set it to 28.
The mechanics move all the wings. This pumps oil through all the lines, pushing out the last few air bubbles. The Gripen can't return to the skies until it has passed this test.
The hydraulic system is the most important element. The engine is what starts and powers the plane, but the wings are what control it. Any loss of fluid would require the plane to make an immediate emergency landing, because the pilot could lose control of the aircraft within seconds. Therefore, it is very important that we work accurately and don't make mistakes. On the other side, we have to look at... Uh-oh, now we've got a problem.
There is problem now.
Looks like we've got an issue with the generator. Now we have to figure out what happened.
Martin and his team have to suspend testing until the generator stops its strike, and that means more valuable time down the drain. The men frantically search for the problem. Then they find out that the test has to be delayed.
We can't proceed. We have to wait for our generator to shut down. At over 30 degrees Celsius, the air here in the hangar was too hot. We have to wait until it's more stable. Then we can continue working.
And yet, just half an hour later, everything is running again. The team was in luck. The onboard computer now manages the entire test and moves all the wings, one after another. It measures the response time and gives the final green light, or not.
Martin, everything's fine.
Okay.
This is, of course, the first day, the day of the hydraulic tests. And these came out well for us, so we're happy for it, of course.
Just next door, in the ejector seat workshop, the pilot's guardian angel is still waiting. Should worst come to worst, this seat will shoot 80 meters into the air. The ejector seat has to be checked every 2 years. In an emergency situation, it is the last option for the pilot. That's why the mechanics put the seat to the acid test. After every part was maintained, the mechanics reassembled the seat and include the parachute and the survival kit. In the end, they will do a functional testing to ensure it is working properly in the event of an emergency. Aircraft mechanic Jiří Wozniak has been servicing and testing high-tech seats like this for the past 20 years.
It's a job that's very close to my heart. If we make a mistake, it could cost someone's life. For the pilots, this seat is their last chance to leave the aircraft when everything goes wrong. Of course, if you do something for a certain amount of time, there's a tendency to go into autopilot. But it's important to battle your ego and focus on following the instructions you're given. If I make a mistake, I might lose a friend and colleague, and nobody wants that.
So Yishi and his colleague take great care when checking the seat. The generator applies 42 bar of pressure to simulate one of the pyrotechnic cartridges exploding. If the pin shoots out, the seat has been released. Test passed, but that's not all.
Now we simulate the ignition of the rocket engine. When it actually happens, this cable is firmly attached to the fuselage. During the firing sequence, it pulls off 80 centimeters of a cord. That activates this mechanism and pulls out the combat wedge. This activates the pyro cartridges, and gas pressure ignites the pyro cartridge in the engine and opens the isolation valve. This is where the opposite side actually released the gas pressure. With the pressure test, we check if the system is tight.
Yishi is satisfied. Everything is working. The seat belts also tighten and secure the pilot should worse come to worst.
We can release the pressure.
The pilot uses this yellow and black handle to activate the ejector seat. It can't be too heavy to pull, but then again, it can't be too light either. Otherwise, the pilot could find himself ejected from the plane simply because something got caught on the lever. According to requirements, exactly 27 kilos of tensile force is needed. Requirement met. The parachute returns to the seat just as it was when it arrived. This is one piece of equipment that Yishi prefers not to touch.
In fact, these parachutes are all packed in Sweden. Each layer of the parachute must be folded differently, so each stack is pressed by several tons for 24 hours. So actually, the parachute assembly itself takes, from what we know, about 7 days.
The final step before the explosives are returned to the seat, sorting out the large number of belts. Not a problem for a pro like Yishi. Unlike the 3.5 kilogram explosive charge that now has to go back into the seat. The 9 pyrotechnic cartridges require Yishi's full concentration. Even after 20 years, he still treats them with utmost respect.
If we work in the way that we're supposed to work, following all the documents and regulations, then almost nothing could go wrong. If I don't stick to the rules, I could put lives at risk.
The emergency kit is the only thing missing now. This yellow case helps the pilot to survive, even after a crash. It is packed full of food, fishing equipment, a knife, and some tools. One day later, back in the hangar. Today, the team is testing the Gripen's gears. The special thing about these gears is their ability to cope with the toughest conditions on the ground, even during the winter. There is one thing that Martin always pays particularly close attention to.
There could be problems if the landing gear does not lower at the right time. If that happens, we have to locate the problem as quickly as possible, solve it, and then replace the landing gear struts if necessary. That would be another delay.
I get in now.
The onboard computer once again takes charge of the test. The 3 gears have to close and open within the space of 12 seconds. At the end, the system simulates another hydraulics failure and checks whether the gear can still lower, solely using its own weight.
Okay.
Another job ticked off for the mega pit stop. But it's not the last. Martin checks the hydraulic lines.
The pilot is used to the aircraft responding immediately. If there isn't enough fluid, it would react later when turning. If, say, 2 jets were flying next to each other, and one was working properly but the other one wasn't, there could be an accident because one of the jets would be slower and would react differently.
tak on by mohl narazit klidně do něj.
A newly fitted joint attracts attention.
I found traces of the old hydraulic oil here, but none of the new oil has leaked. That means everything's okay.
Week 7 of the mega pit stop, and they're already 7 days behind schedule. In the weapons workshop, Tomáš Smolar has dismantled the entire cannon.
Now I'm checking the hull, looking for cracks and minor damage. These issues could destroy the muzzle. And because the pressure in this area is so high, it could end up damaging the entire plane to such an extent that it would probably crash.
A huge responsibility. Tomáš hasn't found anything this time, but he has to be 100% sure when he signs off the cannon as fault-free.
Maintenance errors are out of the question. They're just not an option. Small mistakes can cause serious problems, which can actually even culminate into the loss of the aircraft.
That's why the specialist tests the weapon one last time before returning it to the Gripen. First, he performs a mechanical check to make sure nothing is obstructing the shell casing. And then, though this may look like a cartridge, it is actually an analysis device that checks the cannon's electronics.
Good. We've done that. We've done that. Done that. When we will release the barrel, the cartridge will blast. By simulating the blast, the machine would signal any kind of problems we might have. But this cannon is functioning well.
Tomáš makes his decision. The cannon can go back in. It's the 42nd day of work for the Gripen's mega pit stop. Actually, the fighter jet should have been finished 2 days ago. Instead, Peter Sikora is installing the seat today.
It feels good to install a seat after it has been serviced. That's the result of all our hard work. It makes you feel proud to know that you've done a good job.
Nevertheless, the men can't put their feet up yet. Maximum concentration is required right down to the last step.
We can't allow ourselves to make any mistakes. That's why we work in pairs and keep an eye on each other's work. Not a single mistake is allowed. We feel confident that it will work. After all, we're professionals and we do a good job.
Deep down, of course, they hope that the seat will never really work, because they hope it never has to be activated. Week 10, the crucial point in the mega pit stop. Today will reveal how well the mechanics have done. It's not long before the final turbine test. The Gripen's jet engine can accelerate to Mach 2. That's double the speed of sound, provided that it's working properly. If the fighter jet fails, then all their hard work would be for nothing. Martin, Roman, and their colleagues would have to start all over again. The test flight is scheduled for just 2 days from now. Inside this special hangar, Roman leaves the jet to run at full power, a dangerous moment for the plane and all the mechanics.
This is the final check. I'm carrying a great deal of responsibility here. After this, there will be no more checks before the plane actually starts up. The engine runs at 1,200 revolutions per minute, which means that even a tiny fault could have disastrous consequences. It could damage the machine. So, who does not have to be here? Outside will stay only Gabina or Marian with Romana. Mara is in the cabin, and everyone else get in. When you sit in the plane after, I'll radio everything over to you. When we're outside in the hangar and you're in the plane, I want you to lift up your hands away from the controls.
The mood is tense. The team is prepared for an emergency. The mechanic in the plane is wearing a fireproof suit. In an emergency, the team can use the crane to quickly rescue him from the cockpit. In this safety zone, 10 centimeters of armored glass separate Roman from the aircraft. He controls the test from here.
We're preparing for the 4.
4 is prepared.
It is very dangerous now. Anything can happen to the engine. It could set on fire at any time. People are at risk, and they have to protect themselves at all times. This plane is a 5th-generation model. It's made from CFC, a very light material. There is a risk of very loud noises and strong vibrations.
The team runs through various emergency situations that could happen in the air. The engine follows along, using different settings and speeds, raising and lowering the thrust. Roman notes down the results. Then, a problem occurs. Test aborted. The measuring equipment has reported an air leak in the cooling system. Roman hopes that it's just a false alarm. He has built a special flag for cases just like this. If the cords don't move, it means there is no air leak. All clear. It was just a false alarm after all. The test continues. Now the mechanic in the cockpit has to hit full throttle and ignite the afterburners. It doesn't get more powerful than this. A heavy load for humans and the aircraft.
These tests are quite demanding because the technicians will get into that plane only twice a year. Of course, they do some preparation, but you have to try to get into the shoes of the man sitting twice a year in the plane, which is worth several billions, and he has to do the test. Because of this huge responsibility, we are constantly under pressure. I cannot be 100% sure that everything is all right because I have not seen the data yet. But basically, it looks like, according to my experience, even if we still don't have one preliminary result, which we will have right after the engine will be turned off, we could be 90% sure that the plane is okay. So, yes, I am proud.
The next morning, the maintenance team has been working through the night. The Beast is ready for its test flight.
We've finished. The problem with the oil is fixed.
Okay.
10 days behind schedule, the mega pit stop is now on the home straight. 4 major milestones have cost the team a great deal of patience, hard work, concentration, and sweat. In the space of 50 days, the team has replaced and tested the hydraulic oil and engine. The weapons and ejector seat have been removed and serviced. Everything is done. Well, almost everything.
We are always happy when a job is finished and are already looking forward to the next one. However, the aircraft still needs to be tested.
Ale ještě nevíme samozřejmě, jak to letadlo dopadne.
We're not sure how well it will do. If it's a success, then you'll see us all cheering and celebrating.
Ale jakmile to dopadne dobře, tak uvidíte, vypukne jásot.
Test pilot Mikal Danek, radio handle Marco.
Ahoj.
Hey,
Takže,
I'll quickly explain everything we've done.
já ti řeknu, co nás tam čeká, nemine.
Following a complete overhaul, the Gripen's first takeoff will be in his hands. Hopefully.
Myslím, že ne.
I'm not scared.
Asi když jsem poprvé dělal
I used to get a bit nervous when I wasn't so used to it.
lehká nervozita. Nicméně
But now, I'm experienced.
je to samozřejmě mnohem lepší.
Of course, you have to be careful.
Obezřetný, protože
But I can rely on the team here and the work they do.
udělal všechny pozemní testy.
The flight is just the last piece in the puzzle.
Na mě, abych
But,
udělal
of course,
letové testy
anything could happen.
a může se tam cokoliv samozřejmě přihodit.
The pilot does one last visual inspection and checks out the new engine. But ultimately, he has to rely on the maintenance team's efforts.
This is the number for the new engine. Everything is ready. Good luck.
Thank you.
Jo, díky.
The Gripen, nicknamed the Beast, makes its way to the runway. Pilot Marco is well experienced. Nevertheless, there are still butterflies whenever the plane takes off, for everyone involved.
I don't even want to think about it, but the worst thing that could happen is that the plane won't take off. However, we won't let that happen.
Eventualitu nepředpokládám. Moje očekávání je takové, že letadlo je
I'm expecting the plane to be ready to fly and everything to run smoothly.
Super, no a jaký tam mám napsat kanál? A výšku tady mám 420 a tu.
Ready for takeoff.
Tak, máme ho tam.
It's taking off.
Doufám, že až se vrátí.
We're hoping he'll arrive back safely, but it'll be fine. We're happy when the plane is in the air. That shows that we've done our job properly. It's our bread and butter.
50 days of work, 11 mechanics, over 50 repairs, both large and small. Martin and his team dismantled the ejector seat, jet turbines, and revolver cannon, and put them all back together again. This was no easy mega pit stop. The Beast is ready to return to duty.